Mark loved hiking in the woods. He enjoyed the fresh air, the scenic views, and the solitude. He often went alone, carrying only a backpack. With some essentials and his phone, he felt safe and free in nature. One day, he decided to explore a new trail that he had heard about from a friend. It was supposed to be challenging but rewarding, with a waterfall at the end. He packed his gear and drove to the trailhead, eager to start his adventure. He followed the signs and soon found himself in a dense forest, surrounded by tall trees and chirping birds. He felt a surge of energy and excitement as he walked along the path, admiring the beauty of nature. He checked his phone and saw that he had no signal. He shrugged and put it back in his pocket. He didn't need to call anyone or check his messages. He was here to enjoy himself. He walked for about an hour, feeling more and more relaxed and happy. He wondered how far he was from the waterfall. He hoped it would be worth the hike. He turned a corner and saw a clearing ahead. He smiled and quickened his pace, thinking that maybe he had reached his destination. But as he stepped into the clearing, he felt a sudden blow to the back of his head. He fell to the ground, unconscious. When he woke up, he felt a throbbing pain in his head. He opened his eyes and saw that he was in a dark room, lying on a metal table. He tried to move, but realized that he was strapped down by wires and electrodes. He felt a surge of fear and confusion. Where was he? What had happened? Who had done this to him? He looked around and saw that he was not alone. There were two men in white coats standing next to him, holding clipboards and pens. They looked at him with cold and curious eyes. "Ah, you're awake," one of them said. "Good. Who are you? Where am I? What are you doing to me?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. The men ignored his questions and continued to talk among themselves. "Subject 47 is responsive," the other one said. "Vital signs are stable." "Excellent," the first one said. "Let's begin the experiment." Mark felt a surge of panic. Experiment? What experiment? He tried to struggle, but the wires held him down. He felt helpless and terrified. "Please, please, let me go," he begged. "I don't know who you are or what you want from me. Please, just let me go." The men ignored his pleas and pressed some buttons on a console next to the table. Mark felt a jolt of electricity run through his body. He screamed in agony. The men watched him with interest, taking notes on their clipboards. "Interesting," one of them said. "Subject 47 shows high levels of pain tolerance." "Indeed," the other one said. "Let's increase the voltage." They pressed more buttons and Mark felt another jolt of electricity, stronger than before. He screamed louder, feeling like his body was on fire. He didn't know how long they tortured him for. It felt like an eternity. He lost track of time and space. He only knew pain and fear. He wondered why they were doing this to him. What did they want from him? What did they hope to achieve? He wondered if anyone would ever find him or save him. He wondered if he would ever see his family or friends again. He wondered if he would ever escape this nightmare. Mark felt a wave of relief when the men finally stopped the experiment. He was exhausted and in pain, but he was still alive. He hoped that they would let him go now, or at least explain why they had kidnapped him and tortured him. He looked at them with pleading eyes, hoping to see some compassion or remorse, but they only looked at him with indifference and boredom. "Are you done?" Mark asked weakly. "Can you please let me go?" The men shook their heads. "No, we're not done," one of them said. "We're just getting started." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, feeling a new surge of fear. "What are you going to do to me?" The men exchanged a glance and smiled. "You'll see soon enough," the other one said. "But first, we need to move you to another location." "Another location?" Mark asked. "Where?" The men didn't answer. They unstrapped him from the table and lifted him up. They carried him out of the room and into a corridor. Mark saw that he was in a large facility, full of metal doors and pipes and wires. He heard noises and voices coming from different rooms. He wondered how many other people were here, and what they were doing to them. He felt sick and dizzy. He wanted to escape, but he had no strength or chance. The men took him to an elevator and pressed a button. The doors closed and the elevator started to descend. Mark felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. He wondered where they were taking him. He tried to communicate with the men, hoping to get some answers or sympathy. "Who are you?" He asked, "What are you doing here?" The men looked at him with amusement. "We're scientists," one of them said. "We're doing research on human biology." "Research?" Mark asked. "What kind of research?" The men smiled. "Very advanced research," the other one said. "Research that you wouldn't understand." Mark felt insulted and angry. "Try me," he said. "I'm not stupid. I have a degree in engineering. I know a lot about science and technology." The men laughed. "Engineering," one of them said. "That's cute. But trust me, you don't know anything about what we're doing here." "Then tell me," Mark said. "Why are you doing this to me? What do you want from me?" The men looked at each other and nodded. "Fine," one of them said. "We'll tell you. But don't expect to believe us." They waited until the elevator stopped and the doors opened. They dragged Mark out of the elevator and into another corridor. Mark saw that they were in an underground facility. Deeper than the previous one, he saw more metal doors and pipes and wires, but also strange machines and devices that he had never seen before. He saw screens and monitors, showing images and data that he couldn't comprehend. He saw people in white coats and suits walking around, talking on phones or tablets or headsets. He saw security guards with guns and badges patrolling the area. He felt like he was in a sci-fi movie, but not a good one. He felt like he was in hell. The men took him to a large metal door at the end of the corridor. They scanned their badges and entered a code on a keypad. The door opened and they pushed Mark inside. Mark saw that he was in a circular room with a metal platform in the center. There were wires and cables connecting the platform to a console on the wall. There were also cameras and speakers around the room, recording everything that happened inside. There was no one else in the room, except for another man in a white coat who was waiting for them by the console. He looked at Mark with curiosity and excitement. "Ah, there you are," he said. "I've been expecting you." The man in a white coat walked over to Mark and examined him closely. He touched his face, his hair, his arms, his legs. He smiled and nodded. Yes, he said. "You're perfect. Just what we need." Mark felt violated and disgusted by the man's touch. He tried to pull away, but the men held him firmly. "Who are you?" Mark asked angrily. "What do you want from me?" The man looked at him with amusement. "I'm Dr. Lee," he said, "and I want to study you. Study me." Mark asked, "For what?" Dr. Lee smiled wider. "For science," he said. "For knowledge. For progress." He gestured to the platform in the center of the room. "That's where you're going," he said. "That's where we'll send you." "Send me?" Mark asked, feeling more confused and scared. "Send me where?" Dr. Lee laughed. "To another world," he said. "To another dimension. To another reality." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. He thought he had misheard him. He thought he was joking. He thought he was crazy, but he wasn't. He was serious. He was telling the truth. He was working for aliens.